welcome to this week's video, which is on happiness. Now before I begin, I'd like to tell you that happiness is, throughout this video, I'm going to be using the term happiness as a blanket term or a blanket expression to represent the feelings of joy, expansion, contentment, exhilaration, excitement, and security. Because happiness is a kind of coexists with all of these feelings. It's not specific. So that being said, I'd like to begin by saying that everything that you and I do in our daily lives is directly or indirectly directed towards the feeling of happiness. Now, advertisers and marketers who are hired by corporations and companies have for many years manipulated our consciousness and our subconsciousness of our basic desires of happiness, love and belongingness, and bombarded us with constant imagery which is sugar-coated and extremely colorful, and made us believe that their product or their service is a need and what it is actually a desire. So what they do is that constantly they bombard our consciousness and subconsciousness with imagery, and that filters out as our conscious consumerist behavior. Now, advertisers have this term called mind shares. Mind shares is basically when they buy a spot in your mind in return for the empty promises that they make. So my point of all of this is that our world has now become extremely dependent on the external, on material benefits, on the monetary gains. So therefore our happiness is extremely conditional. It is extremely dependent on the external. So what happens, and the thing about the external is that it is extremely transient. Nothing lasts forever. It is temporary. Everything dies, everything fades away. And when we hold on to external things and when they fade away, it brings us a lot of pain and depression. Which then brings me to my point of the video, which is that there does exist unconditional happiness, which is that feeling of joy and alignment and expansion, which is independent in and of itself. It is not dependent on external material gains or the external. It is absolutely an inside job. Now, let me bring your attention to what emotions are physiologically. Physiologically, emotions only, or an emotional reaction only happens for 90 seconds. Beyond that, we experience emotional reactions, or we experience the emotion only because we hold on to it. There is no other reason why we experience emotions for more than 90 seconds, because naturally that's the time frame in which the emotional reaction happens. Now, the reason why we hold on to these emotions and this feeling of pain and guilt and anger and frustration and whatever the emotion might be is because we are trying to feed our bruised or flattered egos. Now, the thing about the ego is that the ego likes to confuse, it likes to overthink, to overanalyze, and most importantly, it likes to fixate you on an instant or a moment that has long passed. That's why something that happens to you in the morning, you still brood about it even at the end of the day, or even at the end of the month, or even till the end of your life. And that's because we fixate on a moment that is past. Now, the key here is that when you do have an emotional reaction, experience the emotion completely in those 90 seconds by either venting out the emotion. By that I don't mean hurting somebody else or hurting yourself. What I mean is that you can either shout at an empty room or write down your feelings, but express or experience that emotion completely for those 90 seconds. After that 90 seconds has passed, it is your decision whether you want to hold on to the emotion or not. So the next time you find yourself in an emotional reaction, after the 90 seconds have passed, you have to ask yourself, is my contentment and my happiness and my health of any value to me? Or if it's not, then you can continue living in that ball of the ego, which is the mind, or you can shift your attention to this present moment. This present moment is perfect unto itself. If the present moment continues to be unpleasant, you have two options, either, or maybe three options. Either get the hell out of there because you want to be avoiding all the things that put you in a negative zone because it affects your health, or find something within this unpleasant moment that might shift your attention or shift your mood to a little more pleasanter mood, something that's much more nicer. For example, the other day I was in a very crowded bus and people were stepping on my feet, I was stepping on theirs, and everybody was really irritated and annoyed, and everybody was giving each other really annoyed looks. And I finally managed to get a seat, and there was a small kid who was sitting next to me, and he was asleep, so his tiny little hands were holding on to my arm. And that moment, when I shifted my attention to that moment, it brought me so much of joy. And that is purely because I decided in that moment to shift my attention from all these angry, annoyed, irritated people to this moment where this child was holding on to my hand, which is very, very sweet. So it was my decision. If you've known me and I'm pissed or I'm upset, I will tell you I'm upset. I will tell you why I'm upset as well. But after the 90 seconds are over and I've shifted back to this moment, which is not the moment that is bringing me the displeasure, you will never hear me cribbing or being upset about the same things again, because the moment has passed. So the point of this video therefore would be that corporates and advertisers are not responsible for your happiness. The external is only cues. What I mean by that is everything that happens outside of yourself is only a cue. It is your decision about how you want to feel about it. And happiness, a lot of us looks outside of ourselves for happiness. We go outside of ourselves to find something which is predominantly inside of ourselves. It is our decision. And a lot of us like to keep happiness for the future, saying that when I get this perfect relationship, or when I get this house, or when I get this car, or just when I'm the one who buys the Apple iPhone, whatever the model is, that would be when I would truly be happy, or I would finally be happy. But happiness is not in the future. Happiness is not in the external. Happiness is right now, in this moment, and in this place. It is the amount of potential that any moment has to be happy is equal throughout all moments. This is to say, you can be equally as happy sitting in your bedroom as you can be in a beautiful forest, or as you can be in a very crowded place. It is absolutely your decision. So happiness is something that is so deep within our existence, which is basically why we do what we do. And we fail to realize how much we live within the ego and allow the ego to take over. And when the ego takes over, the ego believes that just because somebody hurt you, the only other option is to hurt them back. But here's the alternative. The external, like I said, is only a cue. You can go out and do random acts of kindness. You can bless people with intent. Allow those experiences of the external to be cues to help you in your inner balance of inner happiness, which are just cues. So we are still connected to the external. Therefore, you can allow the external to just be a cue for you to decide how you want to feel. You can feel however you want to feel at any given moment, regardless of the situation. So don't give power to the corporations and to the marketers and say, okay, I've bought this bangle and therefore this is my prized possession. Don't get attached to things and people and the external. It is absolutely transient. The feeling of inner alignment, and I don't want to sound like, extremely this like metaphysical mumbo jumbo. I'm talking about that inner contentment, that inner peace which is not dependent on the external. Regardless of what is happening outside of yourself, you can still come back to alignment within yourself. It is possible. So ask yourself in the moment, what is more important? Living in the ego or living in the moment, experiencing and finding something in the moment that shifts your emotions to something that is much more pleasant. So I'm going to end this video on that note, and hopefully this was of some value to you. I hope this brings some clarity to your life, and I'd be happy to hear from you. If you feel like, you can leave a comment. If you feel inclined to, you can subscribe to my channel or add me on Facebook. For those of you who asked, my name on Facebook, which is actually my real name, is Kartika Nair, KartikaNair, followed by Synchro Shakti. So you guys can easily find me on Facebook and add me, and we shall definitely talk and let me know what you think about this video. So here's me saying goodbye, and thank you for watching.